Welcome to The Explainer. So, how do you motivate a group of people to take on a massive, almost impossible challenge in a completely foreign land? Well, today we're diving into a real masterclass in motivation, a 1975 briefing by Sun Myung Moon to his followers in Japan. We're going to break down the incredibly powerful way he framed their mission, their purpose, and what he saw as their ultimate world-changing goal. Okay, so here's how we're going to break this down. We're going to walk through this speech in 5 key stages. First, we'll look at how it built this incredible sense of cosmic urgency. Then, we'll dive into the main objective, uniting the East and the West. After that, we'll cover the really daunting challenges they were told to expect and the specific mindset they were given as the key to victory. And finally, we'll unpack the ultimate vision, which was, believe it or not, nothing less than recreating an entire nation. The whole thing just kicks off with this incredibly bold declaration. It immediately sets the stakes as high as they can possibly go. See, this isn't framed as just another project or another assignment. It's positioned as the most critical moment in all of divine history. Right from the very first sentence, you can feel the pressure is on. So how do you really convince people that they're standing at the absolute center of a historical turning point? Well, the speech builds this idea of an unmissable providential moment, basically arguing that the actions of these followers were about to set off a heavenly boom. And to back up this huge claim of a heavenly boom, the speech pointed to things that had just happened. Get this, a total of 1,600 couples had just taken part in these mass engagement ceremonies, 900 in Japan and another 700 in Korea. That massive scale was presented as cold, hard proof that something truly historic was underway. And this wasn't just some symbolic thing. The speech lays out this really key theological idea, a dispensation shift. What that means, essentially, is that there was this crucial 3-year window where spiritual ideas had to be made into physical, tangible reality. This framing meant that their actions on the ground in Japan weren't just actions. Nope, they had real cosmic significance. Okay, so that leads us right to the mission's core strategic goal. And it wasn't simply about, getting new members in Japan. It was about proving something much, much bigger, a working blueprint for global reconciliation. So the speech sets up this very clear East versus West dynamic. On one side, you have the local members in Asia, and on the other, you have the International One World Crusade, or IOWC team, which was made up of followers from America and Europe. Their main job was to go to Japan, which the speech calls the center of the Orient, and prove that these two worlds could actually unite, creating this small-scale model for a totally unified planet. And this quote right here, man, it really gets to the heart of the identity they were supposed to take on. They weren't just missionaries or workers, they were God's champions. And in this frame, their personal ability to create harmony wasn't just about good teamwork, it was the living, breathing proof that a unified world was actually possible. But the speech was also brutally honest. It made it crystal clear that this mission was going to be incredibly difficult. It didn't sugarcoat anything, and it didn't shy away from listing the very real, very tough obstacles the members were about to face. The list of difficulties they could expect was long. You've got the language barrier, totally unfamiliar food, different customs like having no chairs or beds, plus the very real risk of social friction and maybe even persecution. But the key here is the framing. These weren't presented as problems to be scared of, but as tests that they were there to pass. So, with all these external challenges stacked against them, what was the strategy for victory? Well, according to the speech, the answer wasn't something you could find out there. Nope, it was entirely internal. It all came down to building the right mindset, the mind of a champion. This quote has the entire strategy baked right into it. Every single external problem, from a language barrier to someone rejecting you, was meant to be internally reframed as an opportunity. Your attitude wasn't just part of the solution, it was presented as the solution to every single obstacle you would ever face. And to make this really concrete, Moon shares his own personal secret with this 4-step model. First, total dedication, heart, mind, and soul. Second, lead from the front, always be at the forefront of the battle. Third, think faster, want things to happen sooner. And finally, this relentless approach to time. Midnight isn't an end, it's a new beginning. It's basically a formula for non-stop action. All right, so this brings us to our final section, where all of these ideas come together in the mission's ultimate goal. And it goes so far beyond just spreading a message. The vision that's laid out is one of complete and total societal transformation. I mean, look at that. The objective is stated in the clearest terms possible. The members weren't just visiting Japan, they were there to literally recreate the entire nation. The speech paints this picture of a country in despair and positions these international members as the only ones who can bring it new hope. Now, to make this huge, abstract idea of recreation feel more tangible, something you can actually grab onto, the speech uses a really powerful metaphor. The members are told to think of themselves as a drill, just boring its way through a hard, resistant surface like concrete. And this is what powerfully defines their role. They are the sharp point of that drill. Their job is to be the leading edge, the ones who break through the concrete of the old world, to create an opening for new ideals to just flow right through. And crucially, they were told they must never, ever become dull. And then, in the speech's final moments, just when you think the scope can't get any bigger, the vision expands exponentially. Recreating Japan, that's just the first step. As you can see here, the goal becomes recreating everything, from the individual to the family to society, nations, and the entire world. The ultimate end goal is framed as nothing less than liberating God himself. So, looking back at this 1975 speech, what we really see is a masterclass in motivational framing. A difficult foreign assignment was completely transformed into the most pivotal event in history, a mission that had to be carried out by champions who were basically destined for victory. It really leaves us with a broader question to think about. For any big undertaking, how much of the final outcome depends not on the external challenges, but on the sheer power of the story that the people involved tell themselves?